Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 5 of Too Legit to Crit. I am John Santana.
And I'm still Justin Taylor. That hasn't changed.
Still not changed. It's kind of persistent, that, isn't it?
It is. It's been persistent for like my whole life. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
Yeah, I know, right?
Unlike me, who has 2 names.
Well, yeah, that's why I like to clarify that I'm still me.
I've got 3 in certain parts of the world.
But yeah, episode 5. Who would have thought we'd make it 5 weeks chatting bollocks?
I know, right? I thought we'd have burnt out by now.
Yeah, same.
And I just had the feeling we're just kind of, I can't be fucked. And
I don't
I don't want to talk to people.
I just want to smash my head into a wall.
I just want to stay at home and masturbate.
I mean... Wait, what?
Oh, well, you know, that's. I thought that's what everybody did.
Moving on.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, so episode 5. We've got quite a few things on the old agenda. We have an agenda this week, which is weird. We don't normally do that.
Yeah,
it's kind of
not only are we still doing it, we're actually putting effort into it, which is
right.
We
even like discussed what to put in the episode. Like we had a big meeting. It felt like it's weird.
It's scary.
It's like work.
I know. It's a bank holiday here in the UK, and we're doing work.
I know. We're weird.
We are.
But yeah, so speaking of the agenda, so just having a look at it, we've got some news stories as usual. That hasn't changed. We're still doing that. And then we've got a couple topics that we want to talk about, which we'll get into later on, and then we have a couple questions.
I don't know about you, but I am excited.
Yeah.
My nipples could cut glass right now.
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, I would. I could thread a needle with these bad boys.
Oh, right.
So, to stop me making this even more uncomfortable,
should we get started with some news?
I was more interested in what's been going on with you. Have you been doing anything in the tabletop role-playing space over the past week?
Yes and no. So after our conversation last episode about the broken character that I built that I was going to play, I was chatting with another player in the game who also wanted to bring in a new character, and we came up with a pretty cool concept, which is actually the talking point that I wanted to bring up with you later on. So I've got a new character. I'm not playing the broken one anymore. We've opted against that in light of this new concept, which is so I'm playing a changeling warlock is what I'm going to be playing. Because changelings are really fun and warlocks are really fun, and fun makes twice the fun, right?
That's what my dad used to say to me all the time.
Exactly. Now, the other player that I had this conversation with also felt like playing a changeling warlock would be a lot of fun. So we're both playing changeling warlocks.
Okay.
Now, we thought, what are the chances of 2 changelings being in the same adventuring party, right? Pretty slim. They're not all that common around the world, especially in the setting that we're playing in, right? So we came up with a pretty cool concept. We're twins.
Okay.
And it was a case of one of those things of, my sibling, swore to a patron. I swore to a patron. My patron's better because I'm older. And that whole dynamic. So, yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be quite interesting, and I was intrigued to get your take on it.
Okay, I'm happy to chat about that. It does seem quite interesting.
And other than that, my daughter, who is 3 years of age, inadvertently wrote her own quest today.
Oh, that's cool.
Just using her imagination. So she quite likes because as we've discussed before, I have a lot of like tabletop pieces, right? So I've got like dungeon tiles and like cave tiles, and I've got like minis and models and all that sort of thing, right? She quite likes playing with them, and I've actually used her playing with them to create dungeon layouts in the past. So I'll just like give her all the tiles, and she'll build out a layout, and I take a photo of it, and then that becomes a dungeon layout. So she does that quite a lot, and she actually builds them in like with where the creatures and the combats are going to happen as well. Like she'll put like the models down, like this is where this is happening, this is where this is. And she's actually oddly very good at scaling the combats correctly. Like, so as you go through her dungeon, it starts off with like some goblins, then you get to like some trolls, and then like it gets harder and harder as you go through this dungeon. And she's fascinated with trolls at the moment. Don't know why. And yeah, we were out today to go shopping this morning, and she had this whole scenario in her head that she was telling me about this troll that lived under a bridge, and which is obviously where trolls live, as we all know. That's where trolls are, at least in a lot of children's stories and things like that. And like about this troll that takes children and all this sort of thing. And I thought that'd actually be a really cool quest to have like this troll that like lives under a bridge and is taking the children from this town, right? This like little village or whatever. So these children are disappearing. They don't know it's a troll, right? These kids are just disappearing. And in investigating, they all seem to be disappearing from this one bridge. And under the bridge, the party will find like an entrance to an underground cavern or something like that. And in there, there's this. You have a little adventure going through this underground cavern to eventually fight this troll and free these children. And I just thought that'd be a really cool little quest that she kind of inadvertently helped me write.
Yeah, and then you can TPK your entire party and blame it on your daughter.
Exactly. It's not my fault. It's the 3-year-old's fault.
Man, who's going to stay mad at a 3-year-old?
It's perfect.
I think it's a perfect crime.
Exactly. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I've been up to. What about yourself? Have you been doing anything thrilling?
Still got a lot of prep to do with this upcoming convention.
Mm-hmm.
So that's taken me quite a bit, just inputting the entire module into Obsidian, getting encounters set up, etc. So that's taken a huge chunk of my time. But I can now finally reveal what the next sort of mini arc of my home campaign is going to be, because I have revealed it to my players, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's going to be a casino heist.
Oh,
Yup.
Okay. A bit of Ocean's 11 on the go.
Bit of Ocean's 11, and yeah, essentially, party needs MacGuffin. Mm-hmm. MacGuffin was stolen years ago by a bad person who has since then set up shop in a sort of desert oasis city, and he has made...
So Vegas.
Yeah, so he's basically created a casino, and he's not the sort of person to hand over MacGuffin willingly. So no, it is... Not. Yeah, they've got to prepare a casino heist.
Heist. Interesting.
Which has caused the appropriate amount of excitement from my players.
I can imagine. That would be a pretty cool thing to start planning.
Yeah, and because it also means that at some point they're going to have to go spend time in a casino.
Yes.
So,
which is
yes.
always fun.
Developing games for them to play and all that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gonna be quite interesting. So yeah, I'm excited for that. That's up and
that
coming.
Sounds really, really cool.
Yeah. Other than that, not really much else to say. Getting through our Abomination Vaults run through. Mm-hmm. Nearly hitting the end of book 2, just about to start book 3. Fantastic adventure path if anybody is on the fence about picking it up. And I went very lavish, and I actually bought the official Foundry sort of module for it.
Well, la-di-da.
Oh, it is sexy. It is very sexy and very nice, and yeah, so that's what we've been doing. But other than that, got a game running tonight, so hence why we're recording it this time.
Yes. Oh, well, that all sounds really good, man. You have to let me know how they come up with with robbing this casino and how it all goes for them.
Yeah, I'm still in kind of the early processes of writing, because it's been rattling around my head for months and months. But until I actually committed to doing it, I wasn't going to start because procrastination. So now that it is actually, this is what we're doing, I'm kind of up against the wall, and I actually need to start
writing
writing.
out, yeah.
But I am considering a alternative mode of presenting the adventure.
Okay.
Which I'm not really going to go into because I haven't discussed it with the players yet, but I think it's going to be quite interesting. So when I shall be updating as things kind of progress. So, shall we talk about some news?
I think we shall.
Right, okay. So, few interesting news stories this week. I think we're going to start it off with one that I didn't expect. Kind of came out the blue, and we both looked at it and went, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yes.
And it is the studio that's responsible for releasing Dune and Star Trek, Modiphius. They are creating their own RPG with their own universe, which for Modiphius is quite strange because they've been known for licensed products.
Yeah.
So them doing their own thing is definitely interesting. And I like the concept of it. It's called Dreams and Machines. And it is going to be set on the planet of Avera Prime, which is cut off from Earth. It sees players attempting to rebuild the human colonies after they were devastated by deadly mechs called Wakers. Since the Wakers have fallen dormant, humans have started to reconstruct their communities away from Earth. Using scraps from advanced technology left by Wakers, humans have developed their own cultures and factions, such as the Archivists, Dreamers, and Spears. It is interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, the bit that like really tickled my fancy was some of the artwork that I've seen for it. It looks really cool.
It is. I've got some of the artwork here. It is very pretty.
And it's a really cool concept for me because I've always been a fan of sort of those kind of post-apocalyptic type settings, and this is one of those that isn't really post-apocalyptic, but it is at the same time.
Yeah, it is an interesting take because you do have the post-apocalyptic sort of elements to it.
Yeah.
But without committing to the world is gone sort of thing.
Yeah, like the whole world got nuked. There's radiation everywhere. Figure it out. You don't have any of that. It's just like there was a big war and this is after the war. Like
and that also does, it kind of offers you the sort of ability to do the fish out of water sort of narrative where you get someone from this distant planet and at some point maybe they travel back to Earth and maybe there is sort of like a adventure that could be had there sort of thing.
I was just reading a bit more on that as well. There's also plans for it to have like a skirmish game based around it as well, and all that sort of thing, which I think will be a really cool addition, especially for someone like me who likes having miniatures for my games. To have like official miniatures that are used for the skirmish game that you can use in like your role playing sessions, I think that'll be really cool as well. Just all round a really cool concept.
Yeah, and there was mention of them trying to kind of spin it off into like TV shows. They're not necessarily making a game; they're making an IP.
Yeah, they're making a whole IP, and they're trying to take it everywhere. And I think it's going to be, if they do it right, it's going to be really really cool and really really awesome to see.
Oh, I wish them all the luck, because
absolutely.
it is very interesting. I'll definitely be potentially kickstarting it if that is
Yeah.
what their plan is. I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, I'll definitely be interested in seeing how that develops. And they are set to be releasing at Gen Con, which is on August the 3rd to 6th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I do believe you've got a bit of news you wanted to bring to the table as well.
I do. So we have had playtest 5 of 1D&D, where they've basically included a bunch of changes to 5 of the classes. So Barbarians Rage, I'm just going to go through the sort of highlights. I'm not going to go into all the depth. But Barbarian Rage is no longer a minute. It's now 10, which is awesome for Barbarians. Because that was something that can be a little bit frustrating in those like really dragged out encounters. Is halfway through you just stop raging for some reason.
No, I never kind of because I think that was definitely a holdover from the 3.5 days.
Yes, it absolutely was. Yeah, and it was something that I've played a fair few Barbarians in my time, and it was something that never made sense. I've never been angry enough that I would hit things harder and calm down in a minute. So that increase to 10 minutes is quite nice for Barbarians. It still does end if they get incapacitated or anything like that, which makes sense. But yeah, that has been extended, so that's quite nice for them. Big change for fighters. Second Wind has got a bit of a buff, so you can use it more than once per long rest, or more than once per short rest even. So you can use that a bit more to kind of give yourself a bit of health and all that thing, which is quite nice. However, Action Surge, which is the main fighter ability that everybody loves and uses for a lot of the broken builds that I've seen and done myself over the years, has seen a bit of a nerf. So you're not going to be able to just take a full turn or full action again. It's going to be limited in what you can do on there as well, which is quite interesting.
I would have thought that has been designed for balance sakes, because
absolutely
you know,
because
a lot of the builds that I've seen in 5e, especially the fighter builds, kind of all went around this action surge ability.
Exactly that. It's also it's one of those things that for 2 levels to get a whole extra attack action is insane. Like you take a 2-level dip into fighter and you can take your whole attack again. Why wouldn't you? So it's definitely been changed for balance sake, and I'll be very interested to see how that affects the balance overall once we get a bit more detail fleshing out everything else in the system, which would be quite nice. Sorcerers have seen some changes as well, so they've got more spell slots, which is awesome because that's something sorcerers have always struggled with. So at max level you used to get 15 slots, you now have 22. So that's quite a big jump. 7 extra spells is a lot of spells, so that would be quite nice and very interesting. Again, I think that's been tweaked for balance sake because sorcerers were really cool, but in terms of usability, they just get dwarfed by every other spellcaster because like you've only got 15 spells. Oh no. And they share lists with a lot of other. They don't have anything that was unique to them, which I'm hoping they change as well. Warlocks got a change, so they're going to gain their Pact Boon at level 1 instead of level 3, so they'll be able to start their scaling a lot quicker, which would be quite nice for them. Something they've always struggled with. They're kind of, for the first 3 levels, you're kind of useless until you get that Pact Boon. So that's quite nice for them. And Wizards themselves haven't had a huge change, just lots of little ones that aren't massively revolutionary or anything like that. What they have had, though, is the rules around spell books have been simplified, and they're all in one place now, rather than having to go through 50 different books and 50 different places to find how a spell book actually works, which is pretty cool. And they've also got a new spell, which is the Scribe spell.
Okay.
So that I haven't read the full spell details on that yet, but I plan to very, very soon. But I'm hoping that lets them essentially scribe spells that they've seen into their spellbook for use themselves, which would be pretty cool. And then aside from the classes, we've had some changes to weapon mechanics, which are really cool. So weapons are no longer just going to be biggest dice better. They're actually going to be adding abilities to the weapons. So like clubs are going to give the ability to slow a target. Halberds are going to be able to cleave and lots of different things like that, which I think is going to be a really, really cool addition because you're going to have flavor on these weapons rather than just this one hits harder, I use this. So that's quite cool. Monks still haven't been touched. We're still waiting on something for that. Monks honestly need the most help in 5e. So I'm hoping they get the buff they need. I'm hoping they become really, really cool and really, really fun. Because at the moment they're a bit of a joke amongst the 5e community. So I'm hoping they get a really... I'm hoping they've been left because they're going to save the best for last and release them right at the end and they're going to be awesome. That's what I'm hoping, but we'll have to wait and see. But if you want to have a look at the playtest stuff, you can go on the Unearthed Arcana website. It's all on there. You can download it yourself for free. Have a look through all the playtest notes and play it. Have a look, see how it feels for you.
Okay, I mean it does sound interesting. A lot of decent changes there, a lot of positive changes, and especially the balance sort of aspect of it is definitely. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is something that 5e has kind of needed.
Yes, absolutely. It's always been, spellcasters have been in a really, really strong place in 5e for a long time. And some of the other changes in the past that they've done with these playtests have been really good, like spells no longer critting, to kind of give that differentiation between, a fireball hitting you and somebody who's really skilled with a sword and stuff like that. And I think those kind of changes are really cool because it's going to bring the balance back into it. Because let's be honest, the problem that a lot of martial characters have is they can't really, like, if they hit you with their axe, it's still only 1d12 of damage, right? Whereas a lot of the spells, as you upscale them, it's like, oh yeah, that does like 82 dice now. You need to go buy a dice shop to cast that spell. And I think that's going to help offset that, I think, which is going to be quite cool.
Nice, it's interesting. Have you tried any of the playtest stuff?
Not yet. I've had a read through some of it. I haven't read through this one yet because I only found out about this when we were looking for news articles for this episode. So I'm going to have a look at that. Probably this week I'll have a play through that and I'll be able to give you a little bit of more feedback on it next week.
Yeah, obviously if you kind of keep me in the loop because it's not something that I'm going to be particularly delving into. Yes. But yeah, I'd be very interested to kind of hear some of the changes that they're making. All right. Okay, so next bit of news comes from the other side of the coin.
Yes.
It comes from Paizo, which
it's your wheelhouse.
They quite suddenly, and I will say this, it was quite sudden across the board. Even for people that are in certain positions that may hear of things early or may not. And can't talk about them because of NDAs.
Can neither confirm nor deny.
Exactly. It was literally posted simultaneously on those feeds as well as the public feeds. That they are going to be remastering their rule books, which once the Orc license kind of got announced, we knew something was going to happen.
Yeah.
That they would move to the Orc license because it kind of makes sense, if they're...
Yeah, of course, yeah.
If they're one of the driving forces behind one of these new licenses.
Spent loads of money developing a license, not going to use it.
Yeah, so... yeah, exactly. It'd be like... So it was quite apparent that something was going to happen. However, I don't think anyone expected this. So essentially what they're going to do is they're going to kind of get all their rules, all their sort of main rule books, and they're going to split them. Because the way it's happened, like not only in this edition but in first edition as well, is that there would be a core rule book, which would have information for players, information for GMs, and then obviously you've got your supplements where you get your game mastery guide, you get your advanced players guide, where you can expand,
flesh stuff out,
on the core rulebook. So now what they're going to do is they're going to split the sort of game master's rules and the player's rules into two, with a third branch which would be the sort of bestiary. So it's almost like they're taking a leaf out of Wizards of the Coast by doing this.
Yeah. So you're going to have essentially like the core rulebook for your players, a sort of game master guide, and then your monster manual.
Yeah, so essentially where you've got your PHB and all that, they're going to essentially do the same thing, which, to be fair, I'm on board with, because you know, the core rulebook, I literally cannot reach it from where I'm sitting, but it's got a ton of pages. It is a Bible and a half. So to actually split that up, so there's going to be a Pathfinder player core, a Pathfinder GM core, a Pathfinder monster core, but then they're going to bring out a Pathfinder player core 2 as well. Which I think...
So I'm guessing that player core 2 is going to kind of be like what the advanced player guide used to be.
I think it's going to be an even split from what I can tell. Because I did watch a sort of frequently asked questions thing, and some of the classes they're going to be in player core, some of the classes they're going to be in player core 2. I mean, some people are calling that a bit of a cash grab. I don't see... Yeah, that's not entirely wrong. It might be.
I guess it maybe depends on the split. Like, because if the ones that they're putting in the normal player core, right? So player core 1, let's just call it, to differentiate now while we're talking about them. So if they put like the really base classes in the player core, and then the classes that are a bit more tricky in the player core 2, that kind of works, because obviously you want the player core for introducing players, and then player core 2 they can get a bit more involved. That's
what I don't think they're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I can't remember them off the top of my head, but they did come out and say, right, we're going to have some classes in this and some classes in the other. I think what they're trying to do is kind of link them slightly thematically.
Right.
Which, yeah, I mean, you know, cash grab, potentially a cash grab, but
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, but. You know, it's a company. They've got to make money, so you're never going to see me.
What they do at the end of the day. Yeah.
You know, so I don't disagree with it. I'll probably be buying everything they put out anyway, because I do.
Yeah.
And there are now there is something about this that has really given me a little tugging in my pants.
Oh.
They are releasing special editions of these books. And they are fucking gorgeous.
I had a feeling it was going to be something like that, because you do love a special edition.
I do. And I'm seeing if I can find a picture. But essentially the special editions are using sort of just black and white artwork, like stencil work on the front. And it's like, they're fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, that's
they're going to be
nice.
They're releasing exclusively to local game stores.
Oh.
So yes, I'm going to get in touch with my local game store and
yes, and be like, you need to get these, all of them. I need them.
I don't give a shit. I just want a copy of each.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's basically what I'm going to do. There are some other things that they kind of glanced over in their initial announcement, but these are the things that have probably caused the most, let's say it, outrage. People don't like change.
No, that's true.
With them kind of embracing the Orc license and wanting to step away from OGL, there are some rules that are being revised and completely omitted. One of those is alignment.
Oh, okay.
So essentially, they're just removing alignment. They're removing the what we know as alignment. And from what I gathered in the press release that they did, is second edition came out with alignment, but it also came out with edicts and anathemas. So when you go and look up a god, for example, it'll say this god has this alignment, but these are its edicts and these are its anathemas. So it was like an added guide as to what sort of behaviours would be considered favourable or unfavourable to that particular god.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because alignment, the same alignment can mean two different things or multiple different things. So having edicts and anathemas helped kind of narrow things down. So, for example, a lawful good worshipper of Sarenrae will have a different edicts and anathemas than a lawful good worshipper of Ragathiel. You know, and...
Although I'm just going to backtrack very, very quickly there and just correct your pronunciation. It's Saranrap.
Saranrap, yes, that is correct. I do apologise.
Thank you.
Yep. Saranrap, indeed. You know, my...
So just to clarify quickly, for the listeners that don't know why we call Saranrae that, in our very, very first campaign that we've spoken about on this podcast before, we had a cleric in the party who also happens to listen to the podcast, who was a cleric of Saranrae, and it was a running joke throughout the entire campaign that we all used to call the god Saranrap. So yeah.
Well, that, because it was my bard that was the most antagonistic.
Yes.
You'll be happy to know that antagonism has lasted throughout all my games. And every time...
I'm so proud.
Every time there is a cleric of Sarenrae, there is something fundamentally wrong with them. Like,
I love it.
One of my players, he was a cleric of Sarenrae, and basically I just made this depraved version of a cleric. You know, they'd walk in and she'd be strung out on fucking smack.
Oh, I love it.
And that has lasted through multiple games and multiple iterations. So much so that my players cautioned another new player against choosing Sarenrae as a god.
Oh, that's when you know you're doing it right.
But anyway, I digress.
Yes, we digress.
So yeah, that is definitely an interesting change. But obviously, it is a change, and you know, you've got people kind of going
on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, you've got people that aren't very happy about it, and you know, I get it. But the beauty of Pathfinder is, if you don't want to use a book, you don't fucking buy it. End of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you can still find all the rules for free on Archives of Nethys.
Mm-hmm. Or, you know, if you want to keep using alignment, you can still use it. Like, it's not like it's a non-existent table that doesn't exist anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like they're going to send anyone to your house.
Oh.
All right, so that is the news from the Paizo corner.
Yes.
There is one more bit of news which I think is very awesome.
I think it is as well. I think it's really cool.
And I'm just gutted that I wasn't invited.
I mean, the choice of words means that we're probably in the wrong country for it.
I don't give a shit. I want to be invited. So, a mall full of D&D players teamed up to defeat Vecna and set a Guinness World Record.
Mm-hmm.
So, essentially, and I completely... Right, so, Andrew Ashby, who is the owner of the tabletop RPG shop We Geek Together, needed 500 players to cram themselves into the Provo Town Centre Mall and agree to play one giant game of Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
By the time dice started rolling on Saturday, more than 1,200 adventurers had answered the call and broken a world record.
Oh, it's insane, dude. Could you imagine 1,200 people in the same game? So it's not like multiple games. That's one game. That's one group.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a part of a multi-table game, but we are going to be organising one soon. And essentially, I mean, don't get me wrong, when I say we are going to be organising, I don't want anyone to get fucking excited. 4 tables, probably at most. All right.
Wait, so you're not trying to break the record of 1,227 players?
I don't think I know. I don't think I know that many people.
I don't think we have that many people in the town we live in.
I certainly don't like that many people.
Oh God, no. I think like if you just took those first 2 numbers, that's too many.
That's a stretch. That's me going, ooh, it's a social event now. I'm going to stay home. So, Yeah, the way it works is that there is an overarching adventure, and each table has to focus on one area of it. There are individual GMs, and then there is a GM coordinator.
Yes.
Who basically tracks everybody's sort of progress and how that affects the story on a whole. Now, that for a table, that for like 4 or 5 tables in of itself is difficult. So to do it with, I mean,
1,227.
so I'm guessing 200. What would it be? 250 tables, give or take.
Well, according to the article, they constructed it with 200 separate parties.
Okay.
So there's two. So originally, Guinness told them they needed to fill 500 seats, right, and that would get them the record. So obviously they went 500 seats, 200 like groups. We can do that. So then it's like tables of like, 2 to 4, right? But then obviously 1,227 people showed up, and then those tables got pretty big. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah. That's 6 and a bit players.
Just over 6 to a table.
Yeah. Which
like
isn't,
6.3
as tables go, it's not that big. It's manageable.
No.
But yeah, I can
200 of them.
I can only imagine that there would have been obviously 200 separate GMs, but every sort of maybe 10 to 15 tables had a coordinator, which that's the only way you could feasibly do that, is have it be a pyramid scheme of sorts, where the 200 separate parties report to a coordinator, who then reports to a higher up coordinator, and then one person sat on an ivory throne. If this dude did not have an ivory throne, I'm very disappointed.
Or like at the very least, like the throne from Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah,
like something along those lines. He has to have. If he didn't, I'm going to be very upset, and I think Guinness should take away the war bread.
Oh yeah, that's it. They should. It's like what chair were you sat on? Oh, just an office chair.
Just a wooden one? Oh no,
that's it.
Yeah. That's it.
Call us when you get a fucking chair, all right?
Yeah, call us when you get a proper throne.
But yeah, I mean that is pretty sweet, to be honest. And
that's awesome, dude. Yeah.
The campaign scenario is available on Drive-Thru RPG.
Yes.
Which add to cart.
Yeah. It definitely it's a really cool thing as well for the whole community, is like just in general, right? To have that many people come together, and just for a whole afternoon and just share the love of the game, and I think that's just awesome.
I think it's fantastic, and it takes some fucking brass.
Well, no. What takes the brass is he has said that he's not content with that, and he wants to do this. He wants to do this annually.
Right.
He wants to host enormous games like this on an annual basis, is what he said.
Yep. Okay. Let's see if we can score invites.
We'll see what we can do.
Dude, I will happily be there reporting on the fucking thing.
Dude, I'll happily fly out to America for that.
Yeah, 100%. I will. I don't even have to play. I will walk around with a microphone and just interview people.
Yeah, man.
So your character died. Talk to us about it.
Well, I ran into this room and it was full of trolls, and I hit one, but there was like 8 others that I didn't see, so I died.
Yeah, basically, it's the GM's fault.
Yeah, absolutely, it's GM's fault.
Always gonna be
Everything's GM's fault. Didn't you know that?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely fantastic. I think it's a good way to kind of end the news on a positive.
Yes.
So, you wanted to talk to me about your new character.
Yes, my changeling warlock with the twin sibling who is also a changeling warlock.
Okay, you've definitely got me intrigued.
So it was one of those things, right, where we had the idea for the twins before we decided to make them both warlocks, right? Because we're both bringing in new characters, because our characters were both being written out at the same time. And I know it's always one of those things, right, when you're writing new characters into a story, if you're doing more than one at a time, like how do these two people know each other, right? Because for two people to randomly show up at the same tavern to find the same group of adventurers, it kind of suspends belief for a minute.
Yeah.
To kind of shoehorn these new characters in. However, if they have a previous relationship, like, you know, they're siblings or whatever, right? Or they've doing something together already, or they're employed by the same person, or whatever the case may be, right? If you've got some reason that they'd be together, it does make it a lot easier, and it doesn't suspend belief for a minute. So we had the idea of making them siblings. Then we were chatting about it, and we thought, wouldn't it be really funny if they were twins? And like my character's like 2 minutes older, because that's how twins work, right? One's always a couple of minutes older than the other one.
Wait, what? I thought they both came out at the same time.
Simultaneously pop out.
Simultaneously.
So we kind of wanted to go on the running joke of, because we're also both siblings, right? Me and the other player involved. We are siblings. We have younger siblings. So we know how that whole sibling dynamic works, right? And we thought it'd be really funny if we took that to the extreme of, because they're twins, the fact that I'm like a couple minutes older, we still have that older sibling, younger sibling dynamic. But I just keep running. Yeah, but I'm a minute older. Yeah, but I'm a minute older, so I go first. And just stuff like that. Just because it would be quite funny. But then, so the other player had the concept of the Warlock to begin with, right? Because they wanted to play a Warlock because they were quite interested in the class and things like that. And we wanted to have that element of competition still, even to our class choice. And I really wanted to do something like a sorcerer. So I was like born with the magic because I was a minute earlier. So they made a deal to get magic, was the original concept we had, right? Because again, it inspires that kind of little competition and rivalry between the two of us. But we've got a sorcerer at the table who is very new to D&D. Like, this is her first campaign, right? And I didn't want to then come in as a sorcerer and overshadow her sorcerer. So we thought, how else could we do it? I thought about wizard, but it didn't really suit because, you know, one studied to get to where they are, and the other one just made a deal. That doesn't seem right. So we both made deals, but with different patrons. To once again inspire that competition of, yeah, but my patron's better than yours. My patron can do this. What can your patron do? And kind of have that cleric-y arguments of my deity versus your deity, but with their patrons, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's kind of the concept at the moment. My character's patron is a genie, and the other character is sworn to an archfey because they really wanted to lean into the fey element of being, you know, changeling and all that sort of thing. And yeah, and we're quite interested to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I think it is an interesting dynamic, and again, it is, like you say, it is one that we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, when you kind of co-create characters with somebody else, you kind of tie yourself into certain elements.
Yes.
Especially when you're creating siblings. So, like, whenever there's a choice between a party member and a sibling, you're always going to go for the sibling.
Yeah, of course.
You know, which is great roleplay. But at the same time, depending on who you're playing with, can create certain sort of hostility. But again, if you're dealing with a table of people who are very into the role playing, then that hostility can be character based and it can be developing, which kind of really works.
And I think that's why this table works really well for that, because none of them are really what I like to call mechanics monkeys. So they're not big on the, you know, if I chain all of these spells together, I can do this really awesome thing. They're all very much about the roleplay. One of the players even comes, like, so she's playing a half-elf, right? And she literally comes to my house wearing elf ears and you know, dressing up and stuff like that. And it's a more role-play focused group. So I think it's going to fit really well with the group, which I think is important, that you have the right group for something like that.
It is, because it's one of these things that can go wrong quite easily, but doesn't have to, if that makes sense. It's not this is a shit idea. It's a case of, as long as it's in the sort of the right environment with the right people, then 100%, I think it's a great idea. And if I was the GM of that table, how much I'd be fucking with you.
Right? And that's the thought process, is it gives a whole new element to fuck with things.
Yeah, just narratively speaking.
Yeah.
You know, maybe your two patrons are somehow be controlled by a third, and you are cogs in a grand machination.
Honestly, my thought process was something similar, or they're actually the same patron, just like appearing differently to both of us.
Yeah, something like that. There's so much to play with, especially when you're dealing with siblings.
Yeah,
there is so much.
It's actually our great grandfather.
Yeah, something along those lines. I'd definitely, as a GM, I'd have fun with that.
Oh yeah, there's a field day to be had.
You know, you can create a really compelling narrative. You know, what if one of the characters dies and then gets turned evil?
Exactly. And I think as well, it's something for me that is going to be, it's big for me, and that it's something I'm stepping out of my comfort zone to do, right? Because as I've discussed in the past, right, I am a mechanic monkey. I like to look at mechanics and how can I make this and that work together to do this and all that sort of thing, right? So for me to build a character that is entirely based around the roleplay possibilities, I'm really proud of myself, because it's stepping out of my comfort zone and it's something I don't like to do, as you well know. And I'm intrigued to see how well I stick that, because I've not even gone out my way to I haven't multi-classed this character. I haven't. I'm literally sticking true to, this is what this person would be doing. They're trying to compete with their sibling. Their sibling's doing this, so I'm gonna do better. And that's all I'm doing. I'm trying to beat my sibling, because that's the sibling rivalry we have. But at the same time, we're not, we don't overly, we're not aggressive towards each other. But there is that whole sibling rivalry of I'm better because I'm the older sibling.
No, I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll probably fall into it quite easily, I think. Because as much as you say that you do focus on mechanics and you struggle with roleplay, now you've got a hook that you're really invested in, and I think that you will kind of find your feet quite easily.
I hope so, because it is an element of the game that I really enjoy when it's done right. Is seeing really good role players, right, do their thing. I love it. I think it's so cool. And I would love to be able to get to a point where, maybe not, at that level, but where I'm at a point where I'm yeah, I can roleplay.
I'm sure you will. It like everything else, it just takes time and practice.
Yeah.
And this is a good sort of canvas for you to do that on. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to hear more about it and how it plays out, and what sort of shit the GM does.
It should be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Yeah, but I also just wanted to touch on the alignment stuff that you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
So it's something I've actually I've had many discussions about alignment in the past.
Oh, alignment discussions are if you're ever part of any tabletop role playing game online communities and someone brings
if you've never talked about alignment, you are not part of an online community.
Oh, but even better is to just sit back and watch other people talk about it, because
get the popcorn out,
because it goes chaotic evil pretty fucking quickly.
Well, my hot take: alignment doesn't matter.
Care to elaborate?
No, I will. Yeah. So I reckon alignment doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, right, like you said when you mentioned it earlier, alignment means different things to different people, right? So you can be a lawful person, like you can be a lawful alignment, right? But that doesn't mean that you follow the law of the city. You could be following the law of your deity, but you're still lawful. And that's why I feel like the alignment chart was a great concept from when it was, introduced, but it's evolved so much since then that it's not that anymore. And I think I agree with what Pathfinder are doing by getting rid of it and just saying, what your deity likes and doesn't like, these actions will do you well, these actions won't, is much better, because that's the things that I need to know as a player, right? Because I, as a player, I understand the concept of a lawful good paladin and a lawful evil character, right? They're not following the same laws, because if you're following the laws of the land, which are generally for the good of the people in the land, right? I say generally, it's not always, right? Then you can't inherently be evil because you're following laws that are good, right? So that lawful doesn't mean the same thing. But then having that breakdown of, okay, well, I worship this deity, so I base my life on them, and they would reward these behaviors. Well, then that's what your lawful means, is you do those behaviors. And if you don't know the behaviors, because at the moment, in D&D anyway, I don't know so much about some of the other systems out there, those behaviors are kind of open for interpretation, because you've just got to kind of look at the lore of the deity and what's written about them in all of the sources that are out there, and say, well, would they think that this is good, or would they think that this is bad? And it kind of becomes a judgment call again, and then you've kind of lost the whole purpose anyway, right?
Yeah. I think you're very, very accurate. Alignment. Oh, right. I've never viewed alignment as a guideline. I've viewed it as an end result.
Yes.
So when someone develops a character and they make them lawful good, or we'll go with chaotic good.
Yes.
So they make a chaotic good character. I've never had that as, this is how your character has to behave. I've always seen it as the events that have transpired between you being born
and now,
and this moment in time tell me your past. They tell me what sort of actions you have taken.
Yeah.
And even then, it's a ballpark.
Yeah.
Even then, it's like you're moving along two axes. So you, right now, you are considered chaotic good, but that's because of what happened previously. As a character, as a player that's playing a character in my world, do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Don't let alignment be a stranglehold. You roleplay however you want. If what you do changes that alignment, then we'll change it.
Yeah. I think as well, that's a really good point. Because I think too many people, like, they'll write an alignment down in their character sheet, and then they kind of make decisions based on that rather than what makes sense.
I mean, the only kind of way that falls apart is when we're dealing with certain mechanics that are tied to alignment.
Yes.
So the prime example is going to be a paladin.
Yeah.
Or if we're talking Pathfinder parlance, a champion. They have an alignment and they stick to an alignment, and if they veer from that alignment, they lose their powers, etc., etc. That's why Pathfinder 2nd Edition were a bit more in depth, where it's okay. So you are a follower of Ragathiel, who is a lawful good god of vengeance.
Yeah.
So your version of lawful good is going to differ from the lawful goodness of Saran Wrap.
Yeah.
Who,
thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I had to correct
myself. It's all about preserving food.
I had to correct myself. He'll be listening to this episode.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is, they've got two very different ways of going about things. And playing that in a very vague sort of concept as alignment is, always kind of leaves things a bit, how do I react to this? Whereas with the edicts and anathemas, you've got a very clear, defined, okay, Ragathiel wants you to punish evildoers.
Yeah.
End of.
And I think that's the better way of handling it, right? Because let's be honest, right? Your alignment only really comes into it if you have a deity. It's the only time it really becomes an issue, right? Is if there's a deity involved. Because if I'm playing a bounty hunter, no one gives a shit whether I'm chaotic good or awful good or just true neutral or whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. And as long as I'm not evil, right? But my actions are going to determine that. I'm not having to act a certain way to still be in favor with my deity. I can act whatever is best for my character in that situation, right? And it's only really... And it should be things like clerics and paladins who are stuck to, this is what my deity wants, so I need to behave that way. Because that's their source of power. It's also what they've devoted their life to. So it kind of works in that element because it becomes part of the character. Is my deity wants this, so I have to stick to that no matter what I want, because that should be what I want.
Yeah, and there are a lot of the discussions that alignment kind of foments is how to make it better, how to make it, work better, how to make it more appropriate. Because alignment came about in the early days of sort of D&D when roleplay aspects weren't as heavy.
Yeah.
So now that, we've got entire worlds and universes that are being created on the daily by many, many GMs across the world, having something as sort of predefined and pigeonholed as alignment doesn't quite fit the bill. And what Paizo have done, instead of going, okay, how do we improve this? They've gone,
just
get rid of it. It doesn't serve a purpose anymore. And I completely agree.
It kind of it works on that age-old saying of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it is broke, chuck it out and get a new one.
Yeah, essentially. And there are mechanics that are going to be tied to it that will be changed. And one of the things that they talked about on the stream were things that do, for example, like spells that work against a particular alignment. Like detect evil.
Yes.
When they kind of said, okay, fair enough, but rather than detect evil, what about if we made it a bit more specific to detect a certain type of evil? So what about detect unholy?
Well, exactly, because that's the thing as well, right? Is even the whole detect evil thing. Your view of what is evil in the world will differ from someone else, right? Especially in in this kind of setting, right, where you can have 15 different deities who are all good in air quotes, right? But their views are diametrically opposed to each other. So like one could be like you mentioned earlier, right? That lawful good deity of vengeance. But you can also have a lawful good deity who thinks that vengeance is a horrific thing and shouldn't be done. So to that deity who thinks vengeance is bad, that lawful good deity of vengeance will appear evil because they believe in vengeance.
I was just about to kind of touch on that as well. I'm the sort of person, and this is going to be no surprise to you, that whenever I watch a movie, I always, to some extent,
agree with the bad guy.
Barring...
I'm the same.
Can I just say, barring World War II documentaries, all right?
Oh, yeah, obviously.
But yeah, a lot of the times, I'm, Thanos snaps his fingers and I kind of go, yep, that sounds about right to me.
Hey, it solved the problem.
If
we can only feed half the population of the universe, get rid of the other half, job done.
So, as a result of that, when I create a villain in my games, I make it so that their motives are at the very least, debatable.
Yeah.
I did one where it was in a city that was populated by a lot of adventurers passing through. So what this villain would do, he would put out fake bounties and fake quests that these heroes would then follow and go into a very dangerous area where they would then be killed. And he would come along and he would steal the items and then sell them for profit.
I mean,
yes,
it's just good business.
It is an evil act, let's be honest, but at the same time, his logic was,
Nobody forced them to go there.
Yeah, nobody forced these people to do this.
Yeah.
No. I just put out a rumour. So, yes, the party never fell for that one and killed him instantly.
Ah.
But that's the sort of... They're the sort of villains I create. I create villains where there is at least a discussion amongst the party where they kind of go, is it that bad, though?
Well, it's also the whole POV thing, right? Like, if you look at Star Wars, because let's be honest, okay, Star Wars as a universe is a universe most people are going to be familiar with.
Right, what's Star Wars?
The Emperor doesn't consider himself evil, right? He genuinely believes what he's doing is best for the universe, the galaxy as a whole. So to him, he's not evil, and the rebellion are the evil ones in his mind, right? And that's why I think alignment doesn't work, because it's all based on your point of view. So having a hard and fast, this is good, this is bad, just doesn't work, because it all comes down to point of view.
Yeah, that's it. And it is a sliding scale. And to kind of have characters fall into one of those 9 sort of blocks, it just doesn't do them justice.
No.
And then we get onto the more problematic topics of entire ancestries being considered evil.
Yes.
Which, they're both Pathfinder and D&D have addressed to some really weird outroar, may I kind of add. If you're the sort of person that gets fucked off by, not all orcs being evil, fucking take a look at your priorities. Just saying. Yeah. But anyway, beside the point. So that is something that has already kind of been dealt with and abolished. So, there is no real reason for it anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't really pose any benefit to existing still.
No.
And most DMs that I've played with anyway don't even really use it.
I don't believe I've encountered players who use it.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, I'm chaotic good. This is what I'll do, sort of thing. And, don't be that player.
Yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. That's a shitty way of playing a game.
Because I've had it where we were playing like an evil campaign, and some of the players took evil to mean a completely different thing to what me and a couple of the other players took it to mean. It's like half the party were taking evil as you're just out for yourself, right? Fuck the world, fuck everyone else, fuck that guy next to you. As long as I come out better, I'm happy, right? Which to me, that's quite an evil way of looking at the world. Quite selfish. But they took it as they're just going to murder anything and everything in front of them, some of the other players. Which, yes, is evil, but also not really the same thing.
But that argument kind of also applies to
goes to
good.
Yeah, exactly.
We had something in our game where I had a crime lord who was running his operation out of a building on the docks.
Yeah.
So the party needed to speak to him. So they initially tried to infiltrate stealthily. Didn't quite work due to some unfortunate rolls.
Yeah.
And it kind of all kicked off, and there was this big sort of combat. When it got to the resolution, and they were actually speaking to this dude, my answer to them was, why didn't you knock on the fucking door first?
Yeah.
I also made a point of him having not anything illegal in this docks because he's a smart man. So it's like, I'm not... take a look. Go do fucking investigate the place. There's nothing illegal going on here. Yeah. I'm going to call the town guard. So it was like, yeah, what part of that does that then go from being a good act to then being
to an evil
act?
And it's exactly that. I mean, it's like if you look at most like crime bosses in general, right? Both in fiction and in the real world, right? They all have some kind of good, honest business that they use, right? Because they need a way to launder their ill-gotten gains. So, to the outside eye, they appear to be a very good person, right? They all do. That's the whole point of this world they build around themselves. They give to charity. They do this for the local community. They help these people. But behind closed doors is where they do their shady shit.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, to the outside world, they're going to seem like a really nice guy and they're a really good guy. And yeah,
yeah.
That's my opinion on alignment.
Yeah,
it should have been abolished a long time ago.
Completely agree. I think alignment is an absolute, and
only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Yeah, exactly. And in something like a video game, absolutes work.
Yes.
But in something which is very much down to each individual person, absolutes
it doesn't.
Don't have a place, and I'm happy to see the back of it.
Yep. I don't blame you.
Right, so shall we answer a question?
I think we shall.
Let's have a look. Okay, so this one has been sent in by friend of the show, Couch.
And a cleric of Saran Wrap.
Cleric of Saran Wrap, extraordinaire. Well, I'm sure there were other nicknames. Saran Wrap was the one that stuck.
Saran Wrap was the one that stuck, but there was many. Sunray was another one. Our little ray of sunshine, Sunray.
I think it was just my bard having a fucking field day.
It was, yeah, it was.
Okay, so Couch asks, you talk about power gamers, but what are our thoughts on power GMs? Ones that seem to be always TPKing tables every month, for example. Have you encountered a GM that plays too much with the power that they have? You want to go first?
Sure. So I think power GMing is not great unless it's a table of power gamers, right? The two work really well together, but power GMs kind of it ruins roleplay elements and becomes too mechanic heavy at that point. And unless you're a power gamer, you're not going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Is my sort of stance on them. Have I encountered them? Yes. I'm not going to mention names, but there are a couple that come to mind who have a reputation for killing groups and killing players. I personally didn't mind it because I like building characters. That's where most of my fun actually comes from in this hobby. So I didn't mind it too much, but I know a lot of other players did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my stance on them. Is that they're good with power gamers. With anyone else, then they're not great.
I've never had the pleasure of encountering a sort of power hungry GM. Most of the GMs that I've had have always been kind of willing to work with the players back and forth, and that's kind of what I define as a power GM. Again, we're going back to absolutes, and these are absolute cunts. But yeah, I've heard stories. I've heard stories of people that don't have the wiggle room, and that's kind of what I define as a power GM.
Yeah.
I mean, a GM that TPKs frequently isn't necessarily a power GM. It's just a severe GM. But you kind of know that as you go in. You know, or you should I say. You should know what you're getting into as a player. And if the GM goes, right, this is session 0, I'm telling you now that I'm not going to fuck about.
Yeah.
I am going to challenge you, and I'm going to try and kill you. It is up to you as players to stop
To
me
not
doing
die.
that.
Yeah.
So
I think as well that's something that is worth noting as well. Is yes, the GM is there to facilitate the story and for you know as their primary thing, but in those encounters, you are fighting sentient things, right? These are things with brains. They're not okay. Some of them are stupid, but at the end of the day, they're also trying to survive.
yeah,
You know, like if you're fighting a group of goblins, right? Yes, you're trying to kill them, but they're also trying to kill you. That's how it should be. Um,
no, I mean I agree wholeheartedly.
yeah,
I don't believe in the sort of soft touch GMs. I don't find that particularly interesting.
mm,
You know, the ones that will allow players to do anything they want and to essentially hijack the game.
yeah,
And I don't believe in GMs that have no sort of wiggle room, because that is what I see as a power GM, is the one that kind of goes, no, what I say goes. That is what I define as a power GM, and we all at some point have to have elements of that. But when it
yeah,
is my table, my rules, or leave sort of thing, it does get a bit tedious for players, for them to not even be able to kind of go, but or can we try this? Can we do that? That is what I see as a power GM. On the
yeah,
converse of that, on the opposite of that, not necessarily the opposite, but separate to that is the tough GMs. I've had some tough GMs, you know, and you kind of know that going in, and that is a case of
yeah.
this is how this GM runs their games. There are many other GMs out there which will probably be more to your liking.
I think there is also one other type of GM we haven't touched on with that, which I would put into the power GM category. There are some GMs who see combat as it's them versus the players, and they go in with the mindset of I need to win.
That's very common.
Yeah, and they will just pull stuff out of their ass until they win.
Yeah.
Those I would say if that's how you feel, don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't.
No, 100%. That's it. I mean, there is an element of antagonism, and to be honest, it's quite easy to fall into.
Yeah.
Because from a player perspective, you are against the GM.
Yes.
And that's the nature of the game.
Yes.
However, it's easy as a GM to kind of react to that.
Yeah.
Rather than just going, yeah, just let them win. There is an element of sort of pushing back. And I think that does kind of foment that sort of antagonistic behaviour.
Yeah.
There is Monster of the Week.
Yes.
In the playbook for that, there is a line that kind of always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And it was, remember, you are a fan of your players.
Yes.
And that's I do kind of bring that with me to the table. I'm interested to see what these players do. I'm interested to see their characters develop, and I'm interested to see them succeed. But at the same time, I'm there to stop that happening. I'm there to provide the challenge. I'm there to make them think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very good question.
It is. It's a very good one. And I think for the most part, every GM style, to some degree, will have a group that would enjoy playing under it.
Yeah.
And likewise, I think every GM style has players that will hate being in that group. which is why I've said it before and I'll say it again and I'll continue to say it. Session zeros are so important because you can set the expectation.
Yeah, definitely. It is something where you can not only kind of talk about the game, but also get to know each other in the event that you don't already know them.
Yes.
Of just kind of, will this person be the right fit for this table?
And I think as well, like it also helps if you are doing, say, a new system, right, that you're familiar with, but some of the players aren't, right? Combat might work differently in that system to the point of like how lethal it is, right? Because let's be honest, Pathfinder, D&D, stuff like that, combat is more. It's an obstacle in the way. It's not fatal 99% of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a system like Stars Without Number, it's fatal. Like if you get into combat, players will die. End of discussion.
Oh, 100%. Rollmaster is the prime example of that.
And I think it's one of those things where if you go from playing nothing but D&D or a lot of Pathfinder and D&D, like games like that where combat is kind of inconsequential, and then you go and play something like Stars Without Number, unless you have that warning at the start in that session zero of, listen, just so you guys know, combat in this is not like in the games you're used to. If you get into a fight, 99% of the time you're going to die.
Yeah.
If you set that early on, then it's great. If you don't set that early on, and then they get into, they go to a bar in the first session, and some guy says something like, some guy has like some offhanded comment, which happens in nightclubs and stuff every day in the real world. You don't go pulling your guns, or maybe some people do.
Nah.
But,
we'll just leave that one hanging there, shall we?
Exactly. Yeah. But for the most part, people don't react in that way. But in games like this, we tend to, because it gives us that outlet for, venting frustrations and angers and whatnot, to a degree. And I think if you were to do that in a system like Stars Without Number, right, you get into that stupid combat that in 5e wouldn't matter. And then three of your party of 5 die. You might turn around and be like, oh, it's fucking GM. But no, it was you. You made a stupid fucking decision.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, a lot of the times, we said it earlier, the GM will always get the blame, which is fine. Yeah. It's the cross we have to bear, to be honest, but it's not always the GM's fault. Just,
Actually, most of the time, it's not the GM's fault, and this is coming from someone who's not a GM. Most of the time, it's our own fault.
But yeah, it was a very good question. Thank you ever so much, Couch.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I think that's about it from us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot to call it a day.
Yeah. Would you like to tell people whereabouts they can see more of you?
Normally I would. However, I am considering a big rebrand of my online presence at the moment. So I'm going to go with, I will be available somewhere online, but at the moment, I'm not sure where that's going to be. I'm going to be nice and cryptic.
Pornhub. You'll find him on Pornhub.
I wish. I am not attractive enough for Pornhub.
Oh, don't say that.
I'm neither attractive enough nor unattractive enough for Pornhub. I'm far too average.
Alright, so you can find me at Natural Juan on most of the social media sites. You can also email in questions to us at questions@toologit2crit.uk. There will also be a link to a form in the description of the episode. And also, if you are in the South End, Essex region and you fancy some good old-fashioned Pathfinder fun, come down to Gamers Nexus in Hadley on the 13th and 14th of May, where we'll be having a small convention.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day to listen to us. I want to thank Couch for sending in another fantastic question, and I want to thank you for keeping me company.
Well, somebody's got to.
Exactly, I'm a very lonely person.
No, honestly, it's always a pleasure. I love chatting bollocks about a hobby that we both enjoy. It's a lot of fun. And like you said, everybody out there listening and we didn't expect anybody to. So the fact that you are is kind of cool.
Yeah, once again, thank you to everyone to listening to two idiots waffle on about tabletop role-playing games.
Yep.
Good night.